Hey, welcome to the Dad Task Force. My name is Brad, and today I'm going to go on a solo adventure. Um, I recorded an episode yesterday, and I put it out this morning. And after thinking about it, I feel like it didn't get my point across in a constructive fashion. So we're going to try again, and it'll be uploaded immediately. So this yesterday, I wanted to talk about like the apathy of man. And I know we've kind of discussed this in the past, but what really got me, I don't know, bothered this week was I went to the store with my wife, and I'm going to give you two contrasting examples. Two men, both with their significant others. And it was just based on outward appearance. Now, you always hear, don't judge a book by its cover, but let me just be really clear. It's these first impressions that give us an assessment of the individual that we're dealing with, how you present yourself, how you prepare and equip yourself for the things that happen in life. And in the first example, there was a man, mid to late 20s, wearing a crew neck sweatshirt, a leather fanny pack strapped across his chest, a like tan or cream sweatpants with them hiked up to the bottom of his calves, and then like fuzzy red and black plaid socks dipped into a pair of Crocs. Now, this guy followed, like we weren't following each other. We just happened to enter the store about the same time. We were in the vicinity of the areas that we were shopping. We just kind of ran into each other here and there. Never once made eye contact with me. Never once even looked up from whatever he was doing in the times that I noticed him. It was always on his phone or talking to his lady friend. And that's example one. Now, example two. A man with his presumably wife and kids, hat, sweatshirt, jeans, and some kind of like, it wasn't a boot, but it wasn't like a hiking shoe. It was some hybrid version of that. Now, let me paint the picture. It's dark, it's foggy, it's starting to get wet outside, and the temperatures are in the high 20s, low 30s. So what we have is conditions that could present a problem as you travel. I mean, people are out on the road and you can't, people are unpredictable. You never know if somebody's going to smash into you, or somebody's going to, or you're going to have a mechanical problem with your car, or if there's, because it's the holiday season and people act wild right now, you never know what's going to happen. And this is the question I would give you. Does the guy in option one give you confidence that you could rely on him in an emergency situation? For me, the answer is no. And what I'm seeing, and look, it's degradation of society. When our grandparents would travel, they would wear suits and they would get dressed up because it's a big deal to go on a plane or go places. When they go to the store, they would get not necessarily all the way dressed up, but they would wear presentable clothes. And when I was in school, it was, you got pajama day every now and again. And that was a spirit building thing. And now today, you'll be hard pressed to go outside and see anybody wearing clothes that don't look like pajamas. I just wonder what the next iteration of this is going to be. If you've ever been in the road, and I'm not even talking like violent emergencies, I'm just talking like run of the mill, everyday kind of thing. You have a flat tire. You weren't planning on having a flat tire. It went flat. Are you equipped just with what you have on your back to get out of your car and position yourself in a position of advantage and solve that problem? Maybe you have to call AAA because you don't have a jack, whatever. Are you equipped for it? Do you know how to change a flat tire? Do you know how to get off the road safely and park in a place and turn your hazards on, or do things that would keep you and those in your car safe? Because what I'm starting to observe is patterns of behavior in society that give the illusion of laziness, ill preparedness, and apathy. I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be comfy cozy all day long, and that doesn't equip the modern man to solve the problems that he's been given. You show up to work unprepared. You go to the store unprepared. You go out in your neighborhood unprepared. What happens when life shows up at your front door and you're unprepared? This is a personal choice. For me, my wife called me the day, and this is why we went to the store. She's like, we have to go do these things. I work from home. I had on joggers and shorts and a t-shirt. And what I decided is like, well, I can't wear this out in public. Not because it's ill-fitting or because it's inappropriate. It's because it didn't make sense to, like, what if I have to get out of the car for something besides going into the store? Now I'm going to walk around the store, and this is the what ifs led me to actually putting on clothes that were built for more utility and being in the world than being in pajamas. I don't feel like there's a pride and ownership and appearance of the men that are coming up in today's world. And I say that to be just, I'm curious as to what happens next. I was angry about it yesterday, but today I'm curious. I'm curious because I worry that we're going to get into this androgynous arena where the expectation is that whoever is trying to court my daughters is going to expect them to solve the problems. It's going to expect them to protect the man or to get out and like do the things that are traditionally expected of the male figure in the relationship. What I don't see is leadership. What I don't see is drive, and what I don't see is purpose. Men need purpose. They need community. They need motivation. When a man has purpose and someone to serve, you will see the best version of that man. When a man gets up in the morning and has a reason to get out of bed, a family to provide for, somebody to protect, and protection isn't necessarily physical protection. It's also creating a space where warmth in the winter and shelter from the elements and food on the table. You're protecting the livelihood. You're providing the kind of life that leads to sustainability. That's what I'm talking about. I don't see that kind of drive. Look, the world has changed. We don't have a ton of trade jobs anymore that are being actively sought out. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be, and I get the irony because we're doing this, but everybody wants to do some sort of profession where they work less and make more. And I don't know that that's a realistic expectation. Sure, some people are blessed and have that opportunity to land positions and companies and jobs but they're few and far between. And right now, maybe I sound like that old man that's just like, today's kids are, whatever. And I'm sure my grandparents felt the same. My granddads felt the same way about my generation. Like, these little whatever. But at the end of the day, I want to ask this, and it's one thing to think about that in terms of the child, the young teenager, 10 to 17-year-old coming up into the world, like, oh my gosh, what are they getting into? And it's another thing to see it with a man in his 20s or 30s, and you're just like, what are you going to do with your life? What are you contributing to the greater good? Let me ask you just one question. And this is the question I want you to sit on and consider the rest of the day. As always, we want to thank our sponsors at streamkids.com. It's streamkids with the Z.com, where you get all of the things that you need to make your vision come to reality. Learning how to video record and edit and all that stuff takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. And most of all, it takes money. But with something like StreamKits, not only is it affordable and you can pick a package that works for you, it's portable, it's easy to set up, it's easy to tear down, it's easy to store, and it's 1080p and it's high-end, high-definition quality cameras that allow you to take your show on the road. And right now with promo code TaskForce15, you get 15% off at MSRP at checkout, and that's with StreamKits at streamkits.com. And that one question is this: if we went to war today, who is going to protect and defend our way of life? Let's just position this question. We aren't going to war somewhere else. Let's say somebody else brought it here to us. What generation is going to stand up and fight for the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans? Who is going to do that? Is it the man that shows up to the store in fuzzy socks and Crocs and sweatpants and a fanny pack? Or is it the guy that shows up in jeans and utility shoes to handle the elements, that looks prepared to protect his family? The guy in Crocs might be a total badass. He might be a level 27 ninja jiu-jitsu master with special operator training. Maybe. I'm not saying that the opinion is formed and you're like, oh no, that's not the guy. It is, because that's exactly how he presented. He presented as somebody I wouldn't want next to me if things hit the fan. But it's the veteran that's already been to war, the Vietnam guys looked at the GWAT guys, and they're like, different war, same struggle, same energy. And the GWAT guys are looking down going, half of our military can't pass a PT test. They're more interested in feelings and feeling good. And, this actually comes into something else. I didn't intend on transitioning into this, but it's a great thing to talk about. I was in a meeting just this week, and what happened was the interviewing somebody in a different industry, and they were experiencing the same thing in their industry that I had experienced in law enforcement. So, and look, I didn't come up in the 90s. I didn't come up in, I joined law enforcement in the late 2000s. And, Thanksgiving Eve, we were doing flutter kicks and push-ups in the rain in the parking lot. We were doing a lot of, physical exercise. When we screwed up, there were consequences to our actions. And you go to the academy, and then towards the end of my career, I'd go to the academy, and I would, you would see some of these instructors, and they're just like, these kids aren't ready for the world. They're being set up for failure because there's no adversity, there's no resilience training, there's no stress inoculation. And let's looking at stress, the stress of the world when crisis happens, when an emergency happens, and these things happen. A crisis is when a person's coping mechanisms become overwhelmed. Stress comes from emergencies, and emergencies come out of nowhere. Emergency is something you didn't plan on happening. It just happens anyways, and you got to deal with it. And what happens to the brain is it goes from this position of logic and reasoning using the prefrontal cortex into that little bitty peanut in the back of your head. It's called the amygdala, that is responsible for survival. And it's that fight, flight, or freeze attitude. That fight, flight, or freeze attitude that jumps into a situation to take control when stress presents itself, and an emergency presents itself, and a crisis appears. Without adequate preparation and consideration for the what ifs, you become ineffective. You become a liability. You become a part of the problem. Because I don't mean to talk over too much law enforcement on this, but I think it's important to articulate. And it's a great example. If you have a situation that's, it's kind of dynamic, it's not really rapidly evolving, but it's a situation that requires a lot more effort than just knocking on a door and solving a problem. Let's say you've got somebody trying to keep you at bay. Well, standard practice is, we surround, we call out, we try to negotiate. But if you've got an officer that decides, you know what, I don't want to do this, and I'm just going to go solve this problem because you're making a bigger deal out of it, you're not thinking through the what ifs, and that officer becomes incapacitated. Now, it's no longer a surround and call out. It's a rescue mission, because we've got to get that officer out of that hot zone and into an area where they can be treated. Used to talk to this firefighter family, and the wife was like, my husband's a fireman, and he goes into areas where the cops won't even go to when there's gunfire, because we got to save lives for a medical emergency. It's like, okay, but the reason that firefighters and EMS stage at emergencies is so that they don't become a victim, because they're not prepared to deal with that kind of thing. And if they become a victim, now the focus is on getting them out, because they're a high value target. They have training and experience that is vital to mission success. They have all of these things that need to be removed. If a cop gets knocked unconscious, all of the things that guy carries on his belt become a liability to the rest of us. So if we don't prepare the mindset for those in law enforcement, military, security, and any kind of adjacent role that requires them to deal with people in a potentially hostile situation, if we don't equip them with the ability to work through stress and breathe and keep oxygenated blood flow going to the brain so that they can maintain a position of logic and reasoning instead of relying on that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, what we're doing is we're setting these people up for failure. You went to school, you know the rules, go out and do your job. That's not how it works, because the world is wild and the world does things that you didn't plan on. Two things are true about people. We all die and we're all unpredictable. I don't care how well you know somebody, there's going to be a time in their life and in your life that they surprise you because you weren't prepared for what they said or did next. If the world is that unpredictable, and you never know, every day is a blessing. Every minute that you move forward is a gift. And if you aren't prepared and equipped to accept that gift, then what is your purpose? I was going to show a video from a podcast that I haven't listened to the whole podcast yet, but the clip on it was great. And it was this old cowboy talking about an average man doesn't need therapy. They don't need to go and talk about their feelings. They just need the people that they're serving to acknowledge that they're serving them. And what it boils down to, and you go in the comments and like, you're just looking for attaboys and da-da-da. That's not what he was saying. What he's saying is that a man will serve, protect, and provide, given that he feels respected. And respect is shown through gratitude. It's shown through stewardship. It's shown through appreciation of his service. If I give my child a car, I don't need them to tell me thank you every day for that car. What I need them to do is to take care of that car. By taking care of it, it's showing me respect by being a good steward of the thing that they've been gifted. And if they're being a good steward with that information or with that car, then to me, I feel like they appreciate it. That is indirect gratitude and appreciation. That is not me begging them, you need to take care of me. It's a life lesson. Everybody that watches this is a taxpayer. If I pay my taxes and my first responders use those tax dollars, or my government uses tax dollars to buy a thing, and then they destroy that thing, and then they have to go buy another thing. To me, that feels disrespectful because you're not taking care of the thing that was bought with the money that you didn't earn. You need to be a good steward of resources, and that is an incredible way to show respect. There is a marriage book, and it's written by Dr. Emerson and Sarah Egerson. I think is the last name. It's called Love and Respect. And the premise of the book is that a man, when a man feels respected, he shows love. And when a woman feels loved, she shows respect. It's in the moment when a man doesn't feel respected that he becomes unloving. And then when a woman doesn't feel loved, she becomes disrespectful, that we get into this crazy cycle. And eventually somebody has to step off this circular chaos and step back into it and acknowledge, hey, look, I'm not being loving. I'm not being respectful right now because I don't feel loved or I don't feel respected. To just bring this whole point home, a man feels respected when he has purpose. And that purpose is intentional, and it gives him drive, that it's motivation to get up in the morning and do the things that need to be done. There was Instagram account Chris Will X, and Chris made had a carousel reel the other day that was it was telling. It was like, the same. It said the same thing we've been saying here on the Dad Task Force, that men are more susceptible to taking their own life, and that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. But men are also more susceptible to loneliness and substance abuse, and isolation, which are completely indoctrinated into the idea of suicide. Let me see if I'll pull it up and show you. It's men aren't seen as having problems. Men are seen as the problem. Suicide rates among men under 30 have risen 40% since 2010 and are 4 times higher than among young women. I'll finish this and I'll come back to that. Male suicides account for as many deaths as breast cancer. Men are less likely than women to go to college or to buy a home. They're more likely to be lonely and more vulnerable to addiction. And let's see. Okay. Coming back to this. Suicide rates in men are way higher than they are in men than they are in women. And largely that has to do with the mechanism of destruction. So if as a guy, most men, when they decide to take their own life, they do it in a way that's irreversible. Whereas women statistically will attempt the act far more often than a man, but their attempts are generally less lethal because of the way that they do it, either poisoning or suffocation, which gives a higher opportunity for intervention. And then I don't remember if you remember, there was back in the early 2000s, there was a guy named Tucker Max. They came out and wrote a book. Now, Tucker is an entirely different person from when I can see now from when he wrote this book. But he said this, he said, you can pretend you don't have a choice, that you don't have the time or brains or resources to raise your game. But then you simply talk yourself into perpetual mediocrity. That aligns itself with drive and purpose. A man needs drive and purpose to be great. The motivation to continue their purpose and to push the cart down the road comes from feeling that there is an attitude of gratitude for their efforts, for the struggles, for all of the pitfalls. And when a man feels respected, he loves well. It's this great big circle that is self-encapsulated, that the second that one of the things though falls off, you start to see the rest of it deteriorate. It's difficult for a man to express his feelings. It's always been seen as weak or cowardice. That's not necessarily the case anymore. As a matter of fact, happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, all of these feelings are universal, meaning that they're not married to one gender or one culture or one demographic. They're universal. So if we normalize the idea of it's okay for a man to feel sad as long as there is a resource and outlet to overcome that sadness. And that's not drinking, your sadness away or using other intoxicants. That's not hiding and masking traumatic experiences with intoxicants and risky behaviors. Make the choice to be better. New Year's Eve is upon us. We're 25, 26 days away from that. And that's the opportunity. Not that you need to have it your reset at the beginning of the year, because honestly, you could have your reset right now. But what happens is your reset right now allows you to focus on being the best man that you can be for your family. The last thing I'm going to add is for the holiday season at the tacticaltalker.com, DadCom, which is a 21-day program to improve the relationship with your kid, is 10% off with the promo code EQUIPPED. You get to learn the skills necessary to be emotionally intelligent, connected, and engaging with your child so that you build a relationship that matters. 3 weeks is all this program lasts. And after 3 weeks, what will happen is you will see a huge turnaround in the relationship you have with your kid. And science and data show us time and time again, it's not the nurture and the teaching and the loving relationship of a mother that indicates a child's success, although that has a huge impact, but it's the presence and intentionality of the father that truly, truly makes a difference. 3 weeks of your time, 5 to 10 minutes a day, plus a daily challenge exercise is all it takes to encourage and increase probability the success of your child the rest of their life. What are you waiting on? There's nothing standing between you and your child's success except the decision to make that effort to be different. I'll see you next time.